We're going to talk about two things today. Sovereignty is one of them. I don't know if you figured that out yet, but sovereignty is one of them. And the other thing is how to deal with the judge when you're actually in court. You're face to face with the judge. What do you do? Which do you want to hear first? The judge? All right, that's very important. Well, it's very simple. It actually is. When you go to court, at the time you go to court, you should have all your paperwork in. You say what you're going to say, you do what you're going to do, and when you're in front of the court, there is no reason to talk, okay, except for certain very key phrases. When there's a motion before the court, or whatever reason you're there, it doesn't matter, arraignment, anything else. When you're in front of the court is not interested in what you have to contribute. The only reason you ever make any appearance in the court is so that the court can ask you questions. Okay? When you file a motion, or when you file a petition, or when you file anything, you always, and I went over this in our last session, what is a motion? A motion has many different names, but when you file it, that is the actual trial, or that is the actual hearing. It's on paper. You say in your points and authorities whatever you've got to say. The other DVD of that last session goes into full detail on this. But that's where everything is said. When you actually get to the hearing, it's the option of the court. The court can choose not to let you say anything. And that's just fine, because you've said everything already. If there's some point of confusion, the court can ask you what you intended, or what you meant, or something like that, and then you can explain further. Anything else is off limits. Now, you've seen attorneys get up and they put in all sorts of new evidence right at the hearing. That's not allowed unless the court chooses to allow it, or unless you fail to object to it. Okay, so here's the simple rule of thumb. Anytime anything happens that you don't like, you object. That's it. 2 words. I object. That's all you say to the judge. I object. You say, I object. Okay? That's all you say when anything happens that you don't like. Now, the next thing that happens, give me a moment. I got a speech here. And I'll get to those questions. Okay. The very next thing that will happen, likely, not guaranteed, is that the judge will say, well, why do you object? And your answer should always be, it is not my wish that it be that way, or that this happen. Now, you understand, this is a centuries, in fact, more than centuries, it's a millennia old tradition. Kings do not issue direct orders. Okay? Why? Because the king is all powerful. Okay? So in order to soften the relationship a little, instead of the king issuing a direct order, the king requests or wishes for something. The king's wish is the subject's command. Okay? The judge is your subject. So when you say, it is not my wish, you are issuing, just by those words, you are issuing a sovereign verbal command. Okay? Which cannot be ignored. So when you say to the judge, it's not my wish, that's all you have to say. The sovereign is not obligated to explain himself. Okay? It is not the place of the subjects to challenge the sovereign. Now, the king, when you are in your sovereign capacity and you say that, the judge, if this is your very first session with the judge, he doesn't know this, or if he does know it, he doesn't realize this is what's happening. So he'll probably say, well, if that's the best you can do, you're overruled. Okay? And so then what you say, if you have the opportunity, if you don't have the opportunity, don't say it. But if you have the opportunity, you say, well, Your Honor, and it's okay to call him Your Honor, you know. It doesn't take anything away from your sovereignty. You just say, well, Your Honor, for the record, that is my wish. And then he says, okay, the record's noted. Okay?
The record is what?
Noted.
Okay.
N-O-T-E-D. So, now, at that point, you said everything you need to say. Just move on to the next item of business. Okay? No.
You have to talk about the last word. We're not hearing any of this on the tape, you guys. You're just talking into space.
Okay. Order in the court. Okay. Now, the thing is that when you have said that little train of phrases, you've done your job for the moment. Okay? Nothing more need be said. You've established your sovereign objection to whatever is going on. Then you move on to the next item of business. Same deal. Something else happens you don't like? I object. At some point, the judge may even say to you, yeah, I know, you object to everything. You say, thank you, Your Honor, that is true. Okay? And then you just move on. Now you don't have to say anything because the whole process is being objected to. Okay? Now, the judge is going to do whatever he's going to do. He's going to say whatever he's going to say. You don't have the guns. He does. Okay? And so you cannot take physical control of the judge. Okay? He has physical control of you whether you like it or not. Okay. So something changed there. We got some feedback. Okay. So what you do is you then leave the courtroom with whatever package you got. All right? Your next step is to go to your typewriter or your computer. By the way, if you're using a typewriter, I feel sorry for you. You know, word processor is the only way to go. And if you don't have a computer, get one. They're so cheap these days, you can get a used one for a couple $100. But what you do is you go to your word processor, and all those things that you objected to that went on, you simply issue an order reversing them. Okay? You do it on paper. Remember this, words are into the air and they float away. They mean nothing. All that has any meaning when you're in the court is the fact that you objected and it's noted for the record. And a lot of times they don't note it on the record, so you note it yourself in your own record. You keep a notepad at right there at the table, and you note when you object something, you make it. And look, they can't push you too fast. You can take all the time you need to write that note. Okay? If he asks you a question, you say, I'll be right with you, Your Honor. I've got to make a note here. Okay? So don't let them push you into keeping bad notes. You just take whatever time you need to write your note. So let me review this again, since we had a lot of interruptions on the last one. I'll just go through it again. First step is, something happens you don't like, you object. Okay, that's number one. Number two, he says, why do you object? And you say, it is not my wish. And then he says, if that's the best you can do, then you're overruled. Okay? Then you say, well, for the record, that is my wish. And he says, okay, it's noted in the record. He may or may not say that. That is the entire procedure, okay, in the courtroom. When you leave the courtroom, that's when you issue those bombshell orders. That's when you cancel out everything he does. And I'll show you an actual example where we did this when we get into the sovereignty. All right, now, if, on the other hand, he respects your wish and says, well, all right, what do you want to do? Then you can say what you wish, whatever it is you do want. But whatever you do, don't argue with the judge. It gets you nowhere. Just a simple objection is good enough. Okay? He wants to shut you down, that's just fine. That's because he knows you objected to everything, and so forth. Now, if the record is not being properly kept, you know, you go back and you look at the docket and you see stuff that's not on there. All you have to do is file affidavits relating to that hearing, and you say this is what really happened. And ideally you should have